Hey everybody, Kaveh here, back on the channel to talk to you today about how to buy an electric violin. The TLDR about today's video is that you could either buy this or this. And there's two paths you could go on as a violinist. If you're a professional violinist and you're an intermediate violinist, advanced student, whatnot, and you want to get into the world of playing rock music, jazz music, experimental music, you want to play with a band, something you don't know is that a microphone is not going to be loud enough. Now, a lot of classical musicians, when they play gigs with a rock band, they're going to hire about 30 violinists or 15 or 20 violinists or maybe a string quartet. And what they try to do is they put all the amplifiers away from the string players. Usually the string players are way behind the band off to the side so that the sound from the amplifiers and the drums don't come into the microphones. So let's say you're a violinist that wants to play with a band, just you, one person, then what's going to happen with a microphone is that as you play, all the sound from the band is going to drift into this microphone, and the sound engineer is going to have to turn up the gain, which is microphone sensitivity, and what's going to happen is the sound of the band is going to come through the speakers that are on the stage or from their amplifiers and make something called feedback. This is a feedback noise. You hear that? Feedback is really disconcerting, and oftentimes what a sound engineer will do to get rid of the feedback, because a lot of sound engineers are not familiar with string instruments, is that they will cut frequencies like the bass part of your instrument, the low frequencies, feedback easier. So they will cut those first, and your violin will end up sounding like, I don't know, it's coming through a tin can. The second thing you might be aware of is that if you've ever tried this before, you're playing with a band using in-ear monitors, is that if you're using a microphone, a lot of the sound from the band is coming through that microphone back into your ears, and it's just pretty much a horrible experience if your band is any louder than like a small jazz quartet or something like that. If you're playing with electric guitar, if you're playing with a singer and a big PA, all this stuff is expensive sound equipment, and you show up to play with a band, what you're going to need are three things that are a pickup. A pickup is a contact microphone that attaches to your acoustic instrument and is usually non-marring. It doesn't really affect your varnish, but after some use it might. So you want to be careful about the kind of carpenter jack, it's called, that comes with it. And another thing you can do is use one of your old violins that you don't play anymore, or buy even $100 violin, because in many cases $100 violin with a pickup and a rock band is going to sound a lot better than a $10,000 violin with a microphone and a rock band, depending on the situation. There are levels to this, but we're talking about level one, getting started. So the pickup that I recommend, and I loved it, it's a little bit touchy, so you might have to repurchase one if you damage it in a year, is the K&A VV3V. And I got my computer right here, and I'm recording my screen so I can show you. This pickup attaches in the wing slot right here. Let me show you, of your violin. This is why I recommend putting it on a cheaper violin, because you could take a piece of sandpaper and a library card and put the sandpaper on top of the library card to kind of open this up if it doesn't fit quite right. But this pickup is kind of a flattened piece of gum shape, so it should fit in there pretty well. And then you got two carpenter clamps that attach to your instrument, which would look like that. You want to make sure as you're playing that the cable that you use is a right angle cable that goes like this and down, so it's not sticking out, because if you have a sticking out cable, it's going to put a lot of pressure on that point, and possibly because of the weight and somebody steps on it, pull your pickup off your violin, which is always fun. So the main thing about this K&A VV3 is that it has a volume knob. So the volume knob is incredibly useful if you're getting feedback, or you want to get louder, or you want to get softer with a band. All right, there's a cheaper version of this pickup which sounds very similar, and I don't recommend that one. Okay, so we got our pickup. Now this pickup is a contact pickup, meaning it has to touch something to start working. And there's some crystals inside and some physics stuff I don't understand. It generates a low, very low electrical signal that comes out of the carpenter jack, which has a potentiometer. It's called, that volume knob is a potentiometer that goes out to some kind of audio system. Now, something you don't know yet is that whenever you buy a pickup or an electric violin, there's something called impedance. Impedance, remember that word. Impedance means something is blocking the signal from the source. Impedance. So if it's high impedance means a very low signal. And low impedance, which is something that is closer to a guitar or a microphone at line level. You might hear these terms in the future. I'm not going to explain them now. A guitar has a much lower impedance, which means their signal is very strong coming out of their pickups on their electric guitar, especially if it's electric guitar. So the cable that you use is the same, but what you need to plug into is actually pretty different. What you need after the cable, and I'll show you the cable right now, you need a right angle guitar cable. It is a guitar cable, but be careful about that word guitar. It's the same 1/4 inch jack, and what I would recommend is getting a 20-foot cable, not a 10-foot cable, just in case you need to jump around or move somewhere. Maybe you're playing a wedding where you want to stroll a little bit. It's not going to help you stroll too much. And as you can see here, there's a 20-foot option, Planet Waves, D'Addario. Excellent cable, good quality. Yes, it's not expensive at all. Now, this point, what do you need to do? Well, you got to make your sound louder. You want to show up somewhere and play loud enough to match a guitar player at a pretty low volume. You're going to need an amplifier. And the type of amplifier you need is an acoustic guitar amplifier that accepts a high impedance input. So impedance, so there's a limit to the type of guitar amplifier you can use. If you plug into an amplifier like this, you are not going to be loud enough. If you take your friend's guitar amplifier, you're not going to be loud enough. It's going to sound tinny and muddy. And what is happening is that the gain, the sensitivity of the amplifier to your pickup has to boost everything to the point where all the transients, the noises that the violin makes inside the bridge, because it's a very harsh sound, are going to get crunchy and distorted. And if you're a classical player who's tried this before, you know what I'm talking about. Violin sounds terrible plugged into guitar stuff, except if the amplifier takes a low impedance signal. So the number that you need to remember is 1 mega ohm or greater. 1 mega ohm or greater. So between 1 mega ohms and 10 mega ohms. 1 mega ohms and 10 mega ohms. That is the range of a piezo pickup. Now, there are other things we could do, which I'm going to talk about later when we talk about electric violins that are more expensive but this is a basic option. And if you want to go cheapest best, what I recommend is the Fishman Loudbox Mini BT, which is important because this amplifier has Bluetooth, which means that you can take your phone and play a karaoke track and play along to a karaoke track if you're playing a party, a wedding, or a ceremony. Especially for ceremonies, it's quite good. The thing about an amplifier is that you want to make sure that it's 60 watts or greater. 60 watts or greater will be loud enough to play with kind of a softer rock band. Not really that loud, but what can happen is if you start to make some money playing in a rock band or play some events where there's sound people and your band can afford a sound guy, then the sound guy could go out the back of this amplifier right here to make it even louder and put it through the PA, the public address system, which is mainly used for the singer's vocals and some keyboards or whatnot. So $399. Yeah, okay. So the pickup really is good enough to get started. This amp is good enough to get started. And the thing you're going to learn very fast is that if you spend $100 on an amplifier or $20 or $200, it's going to be junk, and you're not going to know that you don't sound good for quite a while. The thing about this Fishman Loudbox, which you can look on the Fishman website, is that it accepts low impedance signals. The Violin pickup makes about 10 mega ohms, which is incredibly impeded, incredibly low signal. I think this amplifier, and don't quote me on this, and if you want to leave a comment, please be nice, that I think it's 1 mega ohm. Now, the thing about, what was I saying? Yeah. So I think it's mainly for acoustic guitar. It has Bluetooth. You can play along to a karaoke track. It also has a microphone input, because many times you show up to a wedding or party and somebody wants to talk, and you can do that plugging in a dynamic microphone into this thing. I don't think this has phantom power, which is where the microphone needs power from the amplifier for a condenser mic. That way you can keep the microphone farther away and play. So I don't think that's going to work for this, but you'll read it and you'll check it out. So you got the pickup, you got the cable, and you got the amplifier. We're going to get to the electric violin part, but probably the most important thing about playing amplified is the pickup and the amplification. It's called signal chain from the pickup, the cable, what you're running it through. If you're sending it through to an amplifier like this, which looks impressive, it's going to sound horrible because it's a low impedance device. So you want to make sure you're buying an acoustic guitar amplifier. You want to make sure it's 60 watts. Also, one more thing, you want to make sure that the speaker is a single speaker at 60 watts, and possibly, if you can, find out if it's Class A, because the Roland AC60, which might be discontinued, I'm not sure, is actually, it says 60 watts, but it's 2 speakers, and each one is 30 watts, which is like a practice room volume. And by the way, if you have 30 plus 30 watts on 2 different speakers, it's not twice as loud. There's some physics, which I don't understand, which you can comment below if you do understand. So there's a lot of false advertising in this kind of gear. The Fishman Loudbox, actually pretty loud enough for ceremonies, cocktail parties, stuff like that. You'll be fine with that. Now, one thing you're going to want to do pretty soon is upgrade your pickup. And a really good relatively non-marring pickup is a Realist pickup. Okay, so if you're looking at the screen, what this is a Realist sound clip for violin and viola. So the pickup I talked about works for viola. The first one I did works for viola. The wing slot might be a little bit wider, so you might have to put a piece of paper or two to get it jammed into the wing slot. So make sure you're using a cheap violin. This Realist pickup has a hotter signal, and I've owned it before. I've owned the VVM. The VVM is kind of a little bit thinner, but very clear and pretty good. Remember, on the Fishman Loudbox, you can EQ it, meaning you can scoop the mids, you can pull down the highs, you can increase the bass, which is pretty much you're going to do on every acoustic guitar amplifier that you use. This Realist pickup kind of slots inside. It sounds crazy. It slots inside the violin. This is not the right pickup. That's it. What you do is you take that kind of column thing, this column thing, and line it up this way. And this is going to be the top right here. This copper thing goes inside the violin. And you slot it inside of the F hole on the left. Then you're going to turn this piece, which is kind of a clamp, onto the top of your violin. And then there's another clamp, which is right here. So this pickup is actually less abrasive, in my opinion, than the VVM or other pickups. But like I said, make sure you use it on a cheap violin. A lot of classical musicians are like, oh, I don't want that on my violin. I'm like, if you play a lot in a band, especially, you're going to get kicked around. You're going to knock stuff around. Things are going to fall on you. People are going to bump into you. It's going to happen. People are going to knock over your stuff, which just happened to me 2 weeks. You know who you are. It's going to get scratched up. So, maybe buy a $500 violin, classical people, eventually. Or if you're a teacher, you can use a half broken violin and fix it up from your school to do this. This pickup, like I said, is hotter. Hotter meaning the output is going to be more than the K&A. K&A is the easiest. This is better. This sound clip. You might see another one in here, which is the original Realist. That's the original Realist. And this is actually great if you know how to remove and install a bridge. You put it underneath the feet of the bridge. And this one's going to be cheaper. You can Google it. This is not the sound clip. This is the original violin pickup. Now, at this point, if you look at this connection, the jack is pointed down. So you don't want this. You don't want this right angle jack on your guitar cable. So what you could do is just basically take the straight end of the cable that you bought, put that in here, and put the right angle into your amplifier. So I don't know if there's a picture here. It doesn't quite show it. All right. So this is the least marring higher output. Don't forget that Fishman Loudbox, and there are other ones, but if you have a Fishman, you're in pretty good shape. Now, remember, there are levels to this. So you've been playing in a band, like a folk band or something. You've been playing jazz. This is a good setup with that Realist clip-on. You want to go the next step higher, all right? The next step higher would be to improve your pickup, because this Realist pickup, and you're going to find out, feeds back a little bit, not a lot. So what you can do with Realist pickups is take your amplifier. Do not point it at yourself. Point it away from you. Move it away from you. Point it at the band, because the band wants to hear you. That way, there's no sound feedback loop, which, if you know what I'm talking about, great. If you don't, then that's going to be a topic for another video. So, Loudbox, you're going to want to improve the pickup. And what you need to do is find a violin shop to install it for you. I know I have learned how to install this, and the pickup that I'm talking about is probably the most well-known in country music. That's the LR Bags violin pickup. You can buy it yourself, and you're going to have to get a violin shop to install it, because there's a few things about it. You can see here, the pickup is embedded inside of the bridge, and this is the pickup that I currently use on my decent acoustic violin. Pickup is embedded in the bridge, and there is a cable, which I think in this picture has been cut off so that it doesn't look too busy, but it goes to a carpenter jack, which I don't know if there's a picture here, but the carpenter jack, let me see if I go back. Yeah, I can't find it right now, but I got to move on. So the carpenter jack is very similar to the K and A pickup. Now there's some other pickups that you might be toying with the idea of using, and this is one also made by Bags, but this is for mandolin, and a lot of people have looked into using this, which is a LR Bags mandolin pickup with external jack mount. It has this little bug right here, and the bug has some like clay or something which sticks on top of your violin. And I would not use this for anything loud, because it's going to feedback, because your violin, the entire violin is going to act basically like a microphone. It's going to go through the amp and back into the violin, and that's going to create this sound one more time, which is horrible. Do not buy this one if you're playing louder than like folk music. It might work for folk, and you're going to have to experiment with where you place it on your violin. Again, you're going to use it's like silly putty type stuff to stick it on to the top of your violin, and you put it in different locations. Usually closer to the bridge is going to be good, but I've never used this one. All the stuff I'm talking about today I have used, by the way, and we're going to move forward. So you got your LR Bags pickup, right? LR Bags pickup. You have to go to a violin shop. You got to get them to carve it. The best one in Philadelphia, if you know me, I'm in that area, is Vintage Instruments on Broad Street. Vintage Instruments. There's a guy named John Thorell who I've owned a couple of these pickups. He put the first one and did it, and it was beautiful. He put on the pickup beautifully. He carved the bridge to the right height above the strings. It was the right thickness, so acoustically the violin sounded great, and it didn't really absorb any tone of the instrument. And that's an issue that some people are concerned about. I'm not really concerned about absorbing tone. That realist that looks like that will absorb tone, by the way, forgot to mention. But Vintage Instruments. Now, I think Long Island Violin Shop. There's a Electric Violin Shop in North Carolina. There's places that know what they're talking about. By the way, if you live in a weird area, you might have to send your violin by mail somewhere, and I would send it to Electric Violin Shop to do that work. Big thing about the bags is that it has to be soldered by somebody who knows what they're doing. John Thorell knows what he's doing. And it has to be shortened. That wire that comes out of the violin to the carpenter jack is very long from the manufacturer, so you have to shorten it. You need to be clear with the violin shop to do that. Let's move on. So, setup I currently use is the Bags pickup. I'm going into something called a preamp, like this. This is the Bags Venue DI. Then from the Venue DI, I go into something called a mini PA. And the mini PA that I use is the Alto. And I'll put a link down below. I forget which model. It's not loud enough to play with a rock band, but with the bands that I play with, there's a sound guy that can make me even louder. This one is really good for ceremonies, very good. And as a monitor on stage, which you can hear yourself play, and then the sound guy can do his magic and make you even louder. Now, I mentioned something in between. We're going to backtrack a little bit. You got the bags pickup, or you got the realist pickup. You got your cable. You're going into your amplifier, but you don't like the sound in this Fishman loud box. You're going to have to turn down the highs, turn down the mids, maybe increase the bass a little bit to make it sound good. What you can do is have something in between to bump up the volume, by the way, because this loud box is capable of playing much louder than you can with the low impedance pickup. You're going to need a preamp for sure. And if you're a professional wanting to play with a band, you need a preamp for sure. In my opinion, Electric Violin Shop doesn't always recommend one, and a lot of other people don't use one. But what I like about the preamp is that this, especially this Venue DI or the radial DI pictured right here, I'll put a link down below, can have an out to your amplifier and also an out to the sound guy, which can make you louder. So if you're on your own, the preamp is good to shape the sound, and I'm going to talk a minute about what it does. And then also the preamp to the sound guy is really helpful for him because it increases your signal to line level, the level that sound guys take. And if they don't know anything about violin and impedance, then this is what you bring on stage, and then they can add some reverb or whatever there. So the preamp, good on its own to the sound guy, good split to an amplifier, good split to also sound guy, so amplifier sound guy like that. Also good on its own to play ceremony. What is a preamp for? Well, remember we said violin pickups are high impedance. Remember that word. Low signal. Most audio equipment, if you keep turning up, there's no more room, and the sound that you're bumping up is all the noise and the bow noise and the crunchiness of the violin that you're bumping up, and it's going to sound horrible. What this does, it takes a low impedance signal and boosts it up in a kind of a natural way that I don't understand. So there's kind of a limit to my knowledge. I'm comfortable getting to know these things and learning as much as I can in order to use it. And the preamp boosts the signal to line level and also serves as an EQ. I don't know if you can see right here, I'm showing you the Venue DI that I currently use, which has a lot of tone shaping ability. You can turn down the presence of the violin because it's very, the pickup's going to pick up a lot of that and the high end. You want to turn the presence down. You can turn down the treble a little bit. You could turn down the mids a little bit. You could also boost specific frequencies. A lot of times on an amplifier, it's going to say bass, and you're going to turn up the bass, and the bass might be 80 dB or 80 kilohertz, which is bass, like bass guitar. Your range is about 220 and higher. 220, you can 220 kilohertz, which is not really bass, it's bass for a violin. And if you want to boost that, you can dial that in with a Venue DI. You can dial that in with a radial DI. There are other radial DIs which don't have EQ shaping, which I'm not going to even mention right now because I think you should get the Venue DI. The main thing about the Venue DI with the alto is that this is battery operated. Battery operated, so you could, you show up to a wedding and they want you to play in the middle of a field. Are you kidding me? You can walk, you can say no problem. I can do that. Bags pick up Venue DI and your alto speaker, or Venue DI and the Fishman loud box. This DI or any DI with EQ shaping is going to boost the signal, and it's also going to shape the EQ in the way that you want, not in the way that the amplifier wants. Do you understand? Because usually on an amplifier it's mid. Let's see if I just knocked the microphone. On a guitar amplifier, it's going to say mid, it's going to say bass, it's going to say treble, and the range of bass on an electric guitar is like a full octave lower than yours I don't know, full octave. Anyway, it's E. Yeah, almost a full octave lower than yours. So that's what it's affecting. Your tone shaping can be very precise with, especially this radial, which is unbelievable and takes multiple inputs and can be switched between high pass or high impedance and low impedance. Radial, unreal. You want better, get the radial. Now, let's think if there's anything else. I'm going to have to think. Oh, yeah, I forgot to show you the Venue DI. So here is the Venue DI. Here is the Venue DI. Okay? Now, there's a tuner on it, which isn't great. You're going to want to get a clip-on tuner. The main thing about this thing is that you can set the gain, and this little light will turn red if your gain is too high. So you're going to want to turn down this gain. Usually what I do is I put the bass right about at 1 o'clock. Low mids, I keep it on that 200 where it's at, maybe a little bit higher than that, and I boost that just a little bit. The high mids you can also tune, and the range of the violin that's horrible is about 1.5K to 2K, depending on your pickup, depending on your violin. It's going to be anywhere from 1K to 3K, something like that. So high mid, you're going to put it somewhere around here. You're going to have to do the math on where, and I think I put it right about there, and I scoop this down to right about here. Not too much because the sound guy can make it a little bit better. Presence, I turn down a little bit, and treble, I turn down a little bit. The gain or the EQ on this is not as destructive as guitar amplifiers, which just take this arbitrary frequency range and just totally gets rid of it. This, you can be really precise. You can tune the high frequencies, the low frequencies. There's also a notch filter, and what that is, the feedback. So usually feedback happens anywhere between, like 80 to, according to this device, 360 kilohertz, which is lower, from your G string and lower. So you're going to want to tune it. Probably your G string is going to feed back. So about, 200, 220 is your G string in kilohertz. So somewhere around there. Also, remember I said this thing is battery powered, so it's excellent in that way. And this radial thing that I owned previously is way better, but not battery powered. So I need to be mobile, and that's why I switched back to the Venue. Venue is also intuitive. It also has a boost feature. You can see here a boost, and there's a little dial on the back. I don't know if you could see. There it is, this little boost. And I put it at about 2 o'clock. And when you hit that pedal, you could take a solo. You could also mute yourself, which is really important with a band. If you're using the Bags bridge pickup, there's no volume knob on that Carpenter jack, so you're going to need to mute yourself. If you have the KNA VVM3 with the volume knob, then you can mute yourself from the pickup, which is useful. But when you engage the mute, this is a foot switch, by the way. This lies on the floor and can be either powered by 9-volt or battery. When you put it on the floor and press on this, it engages this tuner. Tuner's not great. And I think this volume out is for the sound guy, which can take your sound from this XLR out, and they got the cables, the sound guy, and your send goes to your amplifier. So number one thing I recommend, if you have the money, you get your Bags pickup and you get a DI like this. This Venue DI is great. Not the best, but incredibly useful. The best for my situation, which doesn't really make sense. Best, who cares? And if you want to upgrade, the next thing you're going to upgrade, and this gets more expensive, is the amplifier. The amplifier that I used for about 10, 15 years is an AER guitar amplifier, which can be plugged into without the DI. You can use the DI. You can not use the DI. And the one I used for many years is called the Alpha Plus. let's see. I don't know if they sell the Alpha Plus anymore, but the one to get that I would get if I had to do it all over again is this Compact 60. The Compact 60 is 60 watt, and this is pristine, beautiful amp. Has a microphone input for phantom power. So if you have a phantom powered clip-on mic or you have a microphone like I have above, you can play acoustically and play, low volumes, but be amplified a little bit for like parties, for concerts. If you're playing with a piano player, some kind of experimental stuff, just piano, acoustic piano, you might want to be beefed up a little bit. This little amplifier can do it. With a microphone like I have here, you're going to need a microphone stand. This is a condenser mic, the SE, by the way, the SE. SE. I know this is getting long, but this is all the stuff I know, and I don't know if I'm going to do a video like this for quite some time. Unbelievable. Has outs to the board. Has, what else has it got? Has a Class A speaker, I'm pretty sure. Good handling. It's about, this big, maybe weighs about 20 pounds, maybe less. I'm not sure, but the best in amplification. There's other ones that you can get from electric violin shop like the Acus. I know this violin from the internet. I've never tried it, but Fiddler Shop has it. Electric Violin Shop has it. And it seems to be quite hot right now. Hot meaning very popular for string players because it's loud enough. 60 watts. Remember 60 watts on that AER. That's what you're going to need. And I think this is single speaker. I think the Alpha Plus was dual speaker, so it was not quite 60 watts. So this is going to be loud enough. You're getting into country music volumes with this AER. You're getting into loud jazz bands, full jazz band with drums, full horn section. You're getting into, Wilco type rock music. You're not getting into heavy metal. And if you want to play heavy metal, please buy, well, I don't know. I was going to say please buy a guitar, but I don't really like the sound of distortion on a violin. I like it natural. All these are natural suggestions. Okay, so let's say this is the top level for kind of where I'm at in life, and the next level is to get a real electric violin. If you want to bypass all this stuff, remember we went on 2 different paths. I would just get the electric violin, the preamp, DI it's called, and I would get an awesome guitar amplifier like this AER. So, $1,400, that's crazy, but if your violin costs $5,000 or $4,000 from electric violin shops, some electric violin shops cost $5,000, at least cost $1,000. I'm telling you, pick up preamp, amplifier, or pick up an amplifier. 2 most important things more than the quality of your violin. You could sound awesome on a $500 acoustic violin, putting a pickup on it with a preamp and an awesome amplifier like this. Awesome. Because of the tone shaping, because of the gain, the way it processes your signal. It's more clear, it's more beautiful, it's less destructive to the tone. And one thing you might not realize is that what the amplifier and the preamp is doing is taking that bridge contact microphone and amplifying that. That's a very harsh sound. It's not amplifying the body of the instrument, so you're going to need to do some tone shaping. But the benefit of that is you're going to get less feedback. You have some control. You have a lot of control over your volume, and you have control on the types of situations that you might play in. If you just have an acoustic violin, there's a limit to your employability for sure. If you're an aspiring rock player or jazz player, you could, I don't know, I guess you could show up at gigs and let the sound guy take care of it, but I want to be in charge of my sound when I'm playing, and this is the way that I do it. Next step for me is to buy an electric violin, and these are going to be solid body violins. And remember I said one of the most important things is the quality of the pickup. Now, the best shop to ask about specifically solid body electric violins, which the body doesn't resonate like this, is Electric Violin Shop or Fiddler Shop. They all have websites, which I'll link down below. Yeah, there's a lot of options for electric violin. And what I did when I bought an electric violin is I drove down from Philadelphia to Electric Violin Shop in North Carolina. It was 8 to 10 hours, and tried a bunch of stuff with that AER Alpha Plus to make sure I just had a violin and an awesome amplifier and it sounded good. And the one that I came up with, probably the best one, which I don't own anymore, which suited me, is this, the Realist electric violin. Realist electric violin. Let me show you that Realist electric violin right now. Yeah, so the Realist electric violin, I used this for like 10 years or maybe 8 years, and really useful because as you can see right here, there's a volume knob in the side of the instrument and the jack comes out the bottom like that. The pickup is embedded underneath the top of the violin where the bridge is. So if the bridge is here and the top of the violin is like that, the pickup is underneath the wood. So it's I want to say it's a little bit less harsh than it could be, but remember the Realist pickups are super hot, meaning they put out a lot of good signal, probably more in the 1 mega ohm range compared to a 10 mega ohm pickup. And the thing about this violin that I liked is that I could put my own chin rest on it. The pickup was embedded. I didn't have to futz with electronics. I could turn down the volume, turn up the volume. It looked like a violin, and I could teach with it. So that's what I used it for. So $1,000 on a Realist 4-string. It's not a lot of money for what you get. Now, the quality of the violin itself, I would say, is about $400 acoustic violin. It's not great, but with the system of the pickup and the volume knob and the usability of it for teaching, I think I used it for like 10 years. And with that Alpha Plus and no preamp for quite a while, I was super happy with it. Not happy with the acoustic sound if I was playing a classical gig, because I had a separate violin for classical stuff and recording stuff and other things that were more high pressure. This was for playing in my wedding band, which I've been playing in with the company for 10 years. So super valuable. This made me a lot of money. So if you're looking at that price going, oh my God. So you get the Realist, $1,100, $1,150, plus the $400 loud box. You're at $1,550. I probably messed up this math. Yes, it costs money. This camera costs money. This hat costs money. Things cost money. If you don't know this and you like gear and you like playing music, if you're a musician, you're going to have to get used to this. Now, you want to save money, and not buy anything else, just get the loud box, get the bags pickup, and that's probably your cheapest, best option. But if you want a dedicated electric violin, this is great. Remember, there are levels to this. The pickup that sounds the best to me, and I've owned this, and by the way, I've sold this stuff, so I'm not losing so much money. I'm not just buying whatever. I've sold a lot of this stuff to buy this camera, for example. I'm not spending a lot of money. I'm trying not to spend a lot of money. I don't want you to spend money. If you can't afford it, don't use credit cards, by the way, to get any of this stuff. Is the Yamaha YEV. I also owned, the thing that I used for many, many years, actually bought it twice and sold it twice, so didn't lose a lot of money, is the Yamaha YEV 104 4-string. The thing about this one is the quality of the pickup. I don't know if you can see here that the pickup, I wish it was a better photo. Let me go back. You can't really see it here, but maybe you can, is that this pickup is awesome. It's kind of this black pickup that runs through the bridge in kind of a Y pattern. Maybe I can find a better picture of it right here. and just an excellent pickup. Yamaha used to sell this acoustic pickup separately for acoustic violins. I know players like Christian Howes. Christian Howes used this, amazing player, used this pickup and sounded fantastic just going into a loud box. So super inexpensive route. And I don't think, I haven't been able to find this pickup on its own. It has now been placed in this Yamaha YEV. Solid body. You're not going to hear a lot of sound while you're playing with a loud band. If you have in-ear monitors, you will hear yourself. If you have an amp, you will hear yourself. You could point that loud box at yourself and not get any feedback at all with a solid body like this Yamaha YEV. Now, on the YEV, there's a volume knob on the bottom. The pickup, the jack comes out the bottom. So you could either use a right angle or straight. And also you have a button which, if you depress it, releases the full tone of the instrument. And also, if you press it, engages the volume knob. So I don't really like the volume knob on the YEV because as soon as you engage it, it seems to suck some of the tone out of the instrument. So I would depress it. Full bodied, really good, natural-ish sound, and then worry about volume later on the amplifier or the DI. So, man, remember I said there are levels. Remember I said there are levels to this. We're going on to top level YEV, and that's going to be called the YEV Pro, and I don't think it's up on Amazon yet. Yeah, it's not up on Amazon. So I'll put a link to Electric Violin Shop, probably has it. Fiddler Shop probably has the YEV Pro. And this looks really promising because the audio that I've heard online, phone audio, computer audio, good speakers audio, headphone audio, has been the most natural that I've heard. Now, I don't know how they're running the sound, but I know the sound of that base model YEV really well. And the YEV pickup probably sounds the most natural to me that I've heard, even a little bit more natural than the bags. But the reason why I don't use the YEV anymore and I sold it is because I teach. I want to play acoustically. I want to use the violin for recording acoustically. I want to play acoustically. I also want to be amplified. So it's an all-in-one situation for me. The YEV I would get if I made a lot more money this next year or got it, I don't know. It's just something to think about. Maybe I shouldn't buy it, but the sound samples sound really good. Okay. I talked a lot. Didn't I talk a lot? I guess I did talk a lot. Yeah. I mean, so remember initially we talked about two different paths that you could go. Something that you're going to have to get used to if you're an electric violinist is that the electric violin is not going to sound like an acoustic violin in a room with somebody just sitting there. It's getting beefed up, and the sound of the bridge is quite harsh. You're going to have to do some tone shaping, and the sound, the quality of the amplifier makes a huge difference because if it's a good Class A speaker, it's going to sound clearer. Also, something you need to think about is that the room and the people in it affect the sound and kind of temper the sound coming out of a harsh source. And the further away you get from the source, the better it's going to sound. And if you're playing for a room of 200 people and you're turning up a little bit on an electric violin setup, and you're just turning up a little bit, and the amplifier is right next to you, it might not sound like an acoustic violin to you, and it might actually sound like an acoustic violin to somebody who's 100 feet away, and it might actually sound better than a microphone in that capacity because the sound is being tempered by the room. The room is helping to shape the sound if people are quiet. If you ever want to know if it sounds quote unquote good, you can get one of your friends who plays violin to play this setup for you, and you can run to a back of a room and you'll see what I mean. All right. I talked a lot. I need water. I hope this helps you. There's a Bunch of links down below. They are Amazon links. This is not a sponsored video, but these are affiliate links. I would appreciate if you do a bunch of research and you can afford these items because you're making money playing the violin, or you got a gift from your parents or something like that, that you use one of the links below. Remember, it's not worth going into debt over this kind of stuff, and you should be fine with just a very basic setup, and don't rush into buying the latest, best gear that you can, because it's really might not be your level yet, especially if you're not making money at it. All right, I don't know what else to say. I hope you have a good day, and return to the channel for more cover songs. Been doing cover songs lately. Got original music that I wrote. Got 50 to 100 lessons, maybe closer to 50 lessons on the channel. All right, everybody. I'm going to go get a drink of water. Peace. See ya.